Welcome to the Whispering Hour, where the world sleeps and stories wake. Listen closely, the dark is speaking again. The town of Bramble Hollow rests in a bowl of hills, mist curling slowly over the rooftops. Lamplight pools in quiet streets. People say the town sleeps easily. It's the kind of place where neighbors borrow sugar and keep secrets, where children call across narrow lanes and dogs sleep in doorways. But even such peaceful places have their hollows, small corners where shadows linger longer than they should. Our story follows a man named Elias Rowan. He returned to Bramble Hollow one autumn when the maples were shedding like old letters. He came back because houses have a way of calling the people who once belonged to them. His grandmother's house had been empty for months, and some things only make sense when you stand inside the rooms where they happened. The house waited at the end of Crow Lane, a narrow road that gave up to a thin field and then to trees. An old red brick home with a porch that sagged like a tired smile. Inside, dust lay in corners like forgotten promises, the air faintly of cedar and tea left too long on the stove. Elias unlocked the door, the lock resisted, then sighed. He stepped in and felt the house breathe around him. On the mantel sat a single photograph, his grandmother smiling beside a figure he didn't recognize. The frame had darkened with age. Elias wiped a small circle of dust away and left the photo untouched. Some things you don't rearrange. That first night he slept poorly. The house made tiny movements, pipes muttered, a floorboard outside his door creaked once, twice, like an old footstep. He told himself it was nothing, houses make noise, people left behind make none. But around 2 a.m. came a faint sound, tap, tap, tap against the downstairs window, like a bird. He told himself it was a branch. Then again, 3 short taps, pause, too long, a rhythm deliberate, as if someone were tapping a code on the glass. He rose, bare feet on cold boards. Outside, the street lay empty, mist thick around the lamps. A darker shape stood beyond the glow, a figure. It turned its head toward the house. No face, only the swirl of fog where eyes should be. Elias blinked, and the figure was gone. The tapping stopped. He whispered, I imagined it. Sleep will make the world ordinary again. But some nights refuse ordinary. Some nights ask for a response. Next afternoon he found a small leather-bound book beneath the upstairs floorboard, brown leather soft from years of secrets. Inside, pages of cramped handwriting, names, times, tiny sketches of doors. His grandmother's hand, but strange entries. June 14th, 3 knocks at midnight, whisper on landing. June 21st, door opened itself, smell of wet paper. June 29th, maples trembled, no wind. The ink grew jagged, hurried. October 2nd, do not let it take the light. That line stuck to his skin. The room felt watched, not by people but by the house itself, walls with ears, floors keeping tally. That night the tapping returned, same rhythm again and again, like Morse for the lonely. Window, nothing. Door, nothing. Porch, nothing. Yet a faint wetness on the sill, like a breath against glass. He slept badly. If you're still listening, you're exactly where this story wants you. Lean closer, listen harder. The next morning, Elias met his neighbor, an elderly woman named Mara Finch. She had lived in Bramble Hollow longer than anyone could remember. She offered him a jar of orange and cinnamon preserves. You found the book? She asked. Elias showed her the slim leather journal. Mara's fingers trembled when she touched it. Your grandmother kept notes, she said softly. She kept watch. Watch for what? Elias asked. Mara's eyes drifted toward the gray sky. The town has hollows, she whispered. You learn which houses keep secrets. Some are harmless. Some are not. She smiled faintly. I heard tapping once too. Ignored it. The next day, my cat was gone. That night, Elias read more of the journal. His grandmother wrote about rituals, a line of salt across the threshold, a candle in a certain bowl, a lullaby hummed at odd hours. She wrote, "If you ignore its question, it learns to ask again." Elias underlined that line. He didn't like questions that learned. Sometime after midnight, a whisper scraped along the hallway, thin as thread. It spoke his name. Lee. As, he could not tell where it came from. He touched the banister, it was warm, as if something had exhaled. He locked his bedroom door and hummed his grandmother's lullaby under his breath. The melody felt like safety drawn in chalk. Outside the door, something tapped, 3 short knocks, for long, too quick. The rhythm matched the lullaby's notes. Elias froze. The house was answering. In the morning, a sunflower sat on his windowsill. It hadn't been there before. The petals were warm. Mara only said, "Not all attention is good." Over the next week, the house sent small signs, shadows moving against light, a chair out of place, a teacup warmed in an empty kitchen. Elias began leaving offerings in a bowl, a coin, a ribbon, a spoon. Each morning, something new appeared, a child's tooth, a button, a folded note reading, "Bring light." He wasn't sure if it was a request or a warning. He started to mark each knock beneath the table with chalk, tally marks growing daily. The house was counting something, and he didn't know what. One night he dreamt of the town long ago. Lanterns burned by themselves. A woman walked by the river, a baby wrapped to her chest. She placed the child in the reeds and turned away. Elias screamed but made no sound. When he woke, his throat ached, and a small reed lay on his bedside table, crusted with salt. He began to understand. The house ate forgetting. It took small pieces of memory, keys, phrases, photographs, things that smelled of life. And it asked to be remembered. That afternoon, following the sound of humming, Elias went into the cellar. The air was damp and cold. Beneath a stack of crates, he found a small bundle wrapped in oilcloth, a doll, its mouth sewn shut, a name stitched inside its collar, Maggie. That night the radio in the parlor turned itself on, hissing static. Through the noise came a faint woman's hum, the same lullaby. He covered his ears, but the hum and the knocking pressed into his skull until he fell asleep, dreaming again of the child in the reeds. When he woke, a scrap of paper lay on his chest. His grandmother's handwriting read, "It remembers through us." As autumn deepened into winter, the house grew restless. The taps became longer, the whispers formed words, the shadows leaned like listeners. The tally marks filled the table's underside. The house was keeping a ledger, not of days, but debts. Mara arrived one evening carrying a lantern. "You should not have come back alone," she said. "The hollow learns names. Names make it hungry." She taught him how to draw a thick line of salt across the door and leave a candle burning in a bowl. For 3 nights they sat in silence, humming the lullaby. The house groaned low. On the second night, the portrait on the mantel fell, and a black feather slid out from behind it. On the third, the tap spelled one name, Maggie. The doll sat by the fire, its sewn mouth twitching. "It's asking for the name it remembers," Mara whispered. "Give it one it already knows." Elias thought of his grandmother's warning, "Do not let it take the light." If the house devoured forgetting, perhaps giving memory could quiet it. They told stories, not grand ones, simple, human ones. The color of a scarf. The smell of rain. The laugh of a child. They said names aloud as offerings. Maggie. Eleanor. Ruth. The house seemed to sigh, yet the tally continued. On the 7th night, the knocks came furious and fast. The doll fell forward, stitches torn, a small pale face inside. It pointed to the photograph on the mantel, his grandmother with the unknown man. Elias turned the frame. A letter was taped behind it. His grandmother's words, "If the house asks, tell it the truth. Tell it the names that were never forgotten." He read the names aloud, one by one, softly. With each name, the house seemed to breathe slower. The taps faded. The floor stopped creaking. When he reached the last name, new writing appeared in the journal: "Return the light, and we will keep the tally no more." Elias climbed to the attic and found a small brass lantern, its glass cracked. He carried it down, lit the wick, and placed it on the windowsill facing Crow Lane. Outside, the mist leaned back. The house inhaled once and went still. Peace settled like dust. The bowl in the kitchen stayed empty. The doll never moved again. Elias lived quietly. He planted flowers by the door. The tally faded from memory. Months later, during the town's winter festival, lanterns glowed in paper shells and laughter warmed the air. Mara smiled at Elias from across the lane. He smiled back. Life, small and bright, went on. One spring evening, he found the old journal open on the table. On the last page, a single sentence shimmered faintly: "We remember because we are remembered." Years passed. Children left pennies in the bowl on the porch. Some swore they heard a lullaby from inside the house. And sometimes, on fog-heavy nights, a small knock echoed from the window, gentle, polite, familiar. Elias would smile, open the door to nothing but mist, and whisper, "Good night." So when you, listener, hear a knock at your window, or a hush in your hallway, do not turn away too quickly. Listen. Speak a name softly. Leave a light by the window. Sometimes the dark simply wants to be remembered. You've been listening to The Whispering Hour. Thank you for keeping the dark company tonight. Until next time, sleep well if you can.